Welcome, everybody, to Greg Heym's Crossing the Line.
Hello.
Thank you, Ray. It's good to be back. We're away for the holiday
No clapping
week.
anymore. We just get woos.
No, well, his hands are full. He's eating
That's
a bagel.
No.
That looks good.
He just tried to drown us with his water bottle.
Right.
Sit in the corner over there, Ray, where you belong.
This is first in studio 2026?
Yeah, that is correct. We did the live podcast, which was a lot of fun. But now we're back in studio 1873.
Let's go into the shining lights.
My home right outside my office. It's great to be here. And we're going to get into it all in just a minute after these announcements.
Do you have a big move coming up? I'm Scott Nadler with CrossCountry Mortgage, and I've got the loan to match your dream home. Whether it's your first or your fifth, I'll make the process quick and easy. Call me today. Let's make it happen.
Sedgh and Zuckerman is a boutique residential law firm guiding you and your clients every step of the way with a solution-oriented approach. Make sure to work with a deal maker and not a deal breaker. Contact us today at sznylaw.com.
All right, now we're back in earnest to start the show. Now we got a couple of things to talk about. Not necessarily economy and housing related. One is the weather, which has been unbearable. I've never seen so much snow on Park Avenue. Like, it is really amazing. A lot of times they make snow disappear very quickly in parts of Manhattan, but not after this thing.
Apparently, it's every 10 years. We had a big storm 96, 06, 16, and now 2026.
On the sixes.
On the sixes.
Some means by the next time it happens, I'll be too old to shovel or snowblow. So I'll have to...
Who was
don't
it
sell
that
yourself
said
short.
that they take the snow, put them on a truck, and drive them out of
Yeah, I did that.
was you?
Rockefeller said they actually do it. Then I don't know where they drive them, but they literally disappear it.
Staten Island.
I was just going to say Staten Island.
It's like a mafia hit crew just comes in and just gets rid of the bodies. They just get rid of the snow.
Yeah, it was really freezing this weekend when I took my kid to the pool in Florida this weekend.
Yeah, Shar,
When we got out of the pool to get to our towels, it was shivering.
That
it was
breeze.
so cold. Yeah.
Yeah, well, what tan? Maybe the lighting in here just ain't gonna do it. But
That 70-degree weather is tough.
he decides he's gonna go to Florida and try to come back on Saturday, which is or Sunday, and it's like, yeah, that's really good. He's like, well, maybe I'll fly in early. It's like, good luck with that, because the whole world's trying to do that now.
I thought it was a brilliant move. I sent my wife and kid earlier in the week last week. But this was before we knew there was going to be a huge snowstorm. It was supposed to be 12 degrees. So I sent him. My sister-in-law is a flight attendant, so she got on standby, didn't pay for a ticket there. Her parents live in Florida, so no hotels. So they spent the week. I flew out on Thursday, and I got an extra snow day, and I flew back on Tuesday.
Next time you want to fly us somewhere in advance of you,
We'll be on standby.
The remote podcast.
I'll stand by, Scott. We'll just stand there and wait. By the way, Scott Nadler, Shahriar Sedgh,
We're back.
the dynamic duo. Well, we didn't go anywhere. We just had a week off. So you had your fun in the sun.
Yes.
We were snowbound watching football, not by the pool, but in cozier, warm environments, as much as we could find anyway.
Right.
So the Denver game, blah, right until the snow hit. That was fun to watch. But let's hear it for Sam Darnold, the man the Jets screwed over completely, and the Vikings were dumb enough not to keep, is now showing he's the only one in that class. The Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, he's the only one in that class to go to a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Did you see if people were floating around as a Jets fan saying if Sam Darnold is able to keep the Patriots from winning another Super Bowl, he was worth wasting the number 3 pick on many years ago?
Well, maybe, but I think the problem with the Jets is we could have drafted anybody. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. It doesn't Aaron Rodgers when he could play, and we would have screwed him up.
It's a mush.
It's a pathetic organization, and all these great coaches, right? Harbaugh is available, he gets gobbled up. Even going back to Vrabel last year, and I fight with one of my brothers about this. He goes, "Why aren't the Jets going after these guys?" And my answer is always the same: why would they want to go to the Jets,
That's right. Scott?
Let's say, we have another thing to talk about with coaching in a second, but let's say you're any of these guys who just signed.
Mm-hmm.
Harbaugh, you've got a lot of movement around. Would you even think about going to the Jets? You have no quarterback. You have no wide receivers. You probably don't have a running back unless you could sign Brees. You have no defensive line. You can't sack the quarterback. You have terrible secondary people.
Do we have any draft picks?
We have a lot of draft picks, but that takes years to materialize.
Listen, you want to be the guy that can turn the ship, you want to be that guy. So it depends. You know, I think, look, it starts with ownership.
And the ownership
Ownership has been weak.
ownership is the worst in professional sports.
It's been tough. So I think to answer your question, I would say no, but there's definitely going to be people. There's always there's only 32 jobs, right? There's only 32 NFL coaching jobs out there. This is one of them. You're in New York. Someone's going to want to take it and have the ego to say, I could be that person.
So they asked Aaron Glenn at the end of the season, like, you know, so what do you think about turning the franchise around? And you guys weren't so successful this year. He goes, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I thought it was going to be a little bit easier to turn this program.
He should have been fired after the Denver game. Why you do a fake punt at the end of a half only to let the clock run out after you get the first down shows you when Kurt Warner is yelling at you and questioning your intelligence, like the nicest guy in the history of the NFL, it shows you what a terrible coach you are. They do nothing well except return kicks. And they have a good punter and kicker because they get the punter gets a lot of practice, but they have no playmakers. I'm worried about Garrett Wilson, being hurt all the time. It's embarrassingly bad that you haven't had a franchise quarterback in my lifetime when you think about it.
And you've gotten top 5 picks several times and you keep dropping the ball.
And the fact that you were dumb enough to dump Sam Darnold for Zach Wilson was ridiculous.
That's right.
Going back to him for a second, Sam Darnold, it's really an incredible story. I mean, this is like a Disney story.
5 teams.
5 teams. The guy was written off by everyone. He was booed. Stephen A. Smith went on a famous rant about him. Now he had to do a
retraction.
Mea culpa. But it's an incredible story, and to have the best game of his life in the biggest game of his life.
Well, that was kind of a draw between him and Stafford.
They were both incredible. They were both great. But
and did you know his maternal grandfather, I believe, was the Marlboro Man.
I just saw that.
I did not know that. That's a great fact.
And again, he's the only one.
You crossed the line with that one, Greg.
Everybody could talk about Josh Allen and Lamar and Baker. They're great quarterbacks, but they haven't been to a Super Bowl.
That's true.
And
who do you like now?
I think Seattle, when you look at the defense, I mean, Drake May was great in the regular season. He's going to battle, I guess, Stafford for the MVP. Mm-hmm. But he didn't look so great in the playoffs. I mean, the conditions were bad. They were playing not to lose, and they won the game.
Yeah.
But he's turned the ball over a bit, and he hasn't looked comfortable yet. And Seattle's defense obviously didn't look too spectacular, but that's the Rams' offense. That's different. New England's not that explosive.
Their strength of schedule was not very hard either, so they got an easy run.
Well, when you look and you play the Jets twice, that tells you.
Well, even last week they played Denver without their quarterback.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they were losing. So one other football story that broke yesterday, Bill Belichick not going to be a first-round Hall of Famer.
All right.
First-ballot Hall of Famer.
This goes to show you, if you're mean to people, it comes back to you.
I mean, this is the NFL, okay? There's a lot of people in that Hall of Fame that have been convicted of felonies and been very not nice people. It's that kind of sport. You go in other leagues of great players who were not. Joe DiMaggio wasn't a nice guy. Steve Carlton hated the media. Like, you could go sport by sport.
You think it's just right now, or do you think
it's the spying?
Spygate?
What I saw is that somebody said with Spygate and Deflategate, they can make him wait a year. He deserves it. That's what somebody said.
Let me ask you this. Do you think Brady leaving and winning without him and then him falling off has anything to do with it also?
I don't think that has anything to do with it because 6 rings, Brady was a nobody. And the 1 year Brady got injured, Matt Castle, where they went 11 games that year. They didn't make the playoffs. How do you go 11-5 and not make? But I mean, he never really got a chance. I mean, it didn't work out in Cleveland. He was the 2-time coach of the Jets, but never coached a game. I mean, it's funny how that all worked out.
It seems like a statement the NFL is making to appease the fan base or something. Obviously, he's been in. If he wasn't the North Carolina coach and dating this 20-year-old social media influencer, there's a lot of negative press about that. If that wasn't happening, I wonder if he'd be in the Hall of Fame at this point. If he just retired quietly. It
does seem to be the hardest Hall of Fame to get into. Like baseball, they're letting anybody in.
NBA is pretty easy too, relatively speaking.
And hockey is hockey. They have an international pool to choose from now. But you look, there's great NFL players who are still waiting, and
listen, he deserves to be.
No,
he deserves to be.
A lot of people went nuts. J.J. Watt went nuts. Patrick Mahomes went nuts.
I can't wait to see if he shows up, and when he finally gets in, whether he'll give him a snub and say, "You didn't let me in my first opportunity." Is he going to do it? Right?
I don't know.
I feel like him and the NFL are butting heads.
Apparently,
right
he
now.
was a little stunned by it, but
I'm sure.
I don't know. I don't know that Bill Parcells wasn't the most likable guy as a coach. Again, he wasn't involved in a scandal,
Right.
but all right. So that's enough sports talk for now.
All right. We've alienated some of the listeners. Let's talk, Alan.
No, we'll get you back now. I mean, it's not a lot in terms of economic data. We're still getting November data coming out, which doesn't mean much. But one of the things that came out that is somewhat timely is consumer confidence. Lowest level since 2014, right? And you look at this and go, wait, worse than the pandemic? Now, remember, this is soft data. So, Scott Nadler, what do you take away from this? That could just be 1 month. There's been a lot going on. It's made people nervous, angry. Not a lot to make
Negative news sells,
Yes.
right? And I think, people live their lives online, and there's a lot of negative press. I read recently that 50% of comments online are bots.
Wow.
That is a wild statistic.
Wow.
And a lot of those bots are programmed to put out negative information.
We are
and to
bot
highlight-
free here
We are
on
bot
Greg
free
Heym's
here.
Crossing the Line. Just want you to know that.
So to your point, it's soft data. But there are people hurting out there. When you do see the data, employment numbers are down. Inflation is something we can
And
talk about.
we don't believe those employment numbers. They'd probably be. It was the weakest year for job growth in over 20 years.
Yeah.
And when all is said and done, I don't know that's going to turn negative. That would take massive, but you never know.
Also, the quality of jobs that are out there that people aren't even counted in those numbers, who are driving Ubers or DoorDash, they're not counted in being unemployed. They're doing jobs that they don't want to be doing. They're in that gig world.
Underemployed.
Underemployed,
It's that
exactly.
U6 number.
Right.
So
I'd love to.
go ahead.
I would have loved for them to have a follow-up question saying, "What's driving your confidence?
Why are you so negative?
Yeah, and then see if the reasons of which it's causing these emotions is actually something that should correlate to whether you're.
So there's two things they basically ask about: is how do you feel about the current environment, and what do you see in the future? And these were both very negative. Now, this is all interesting because the unemployment rate is 4.4%. If you believe the jobs numbers, we're still adding a small number of jobs. Layoffs are not big. It's no hire, no fire. GDP was very high rate of growth in the third quarter. The current forecast for the fourth quarter, the actual number will come out on my birthday.
When's your birthday?
February 20th, for all you out there that want to send me cards. Email gift cards to ctl@bhsusa.com. So the current GDP now forecast is 5.4% for the fourth quarter. Did the fourth quarter feel like a bonanza? Like, did we go spend silly? I don't know.
I think we were still real.
You didn't get me anything, so
I got you a
you did.
beautiful bottle
That is true. You got
of
me scotch. And Nadler gave me a hat. That's right. Nice scotch, nice hat.
right.
A gold crusted
a
hat.
Nick game we got.
Well, that was that in January?
That was in
January.
Every month you gotta
Doesn't count.
one up it.
What was that?
Lena,
Give her a mic.
Is throwing shade.
Give her a mic.
Throwing shade on what?
So, but I think what you said sort of fits in with what I was saying, that all of these factors are indicating a growing economy.
Or at least hopes for the future, right?
Exactly. So, but at the same time, when you're looking at headlines that have these negative, catchy phrases, like Scott was saying, you sort of put aside the numbers.
Ray
and
just
the
knocked his
logic.
water bottle over again.
Again, a second time.
Thinks I don't notice.
Yeah.
That's it. Sippy cup next time.
Yeah.
Sippy cup.
And then on top of what you said, also the stock market had 16% return last year.
Yeah, you would think.
I was just gonna say that too. There is a bit of a split there, right? Because you see Wall Street bonuses, you see the stock market, and then you see another segment of the market where people are struggling still.
And the one word that you keep hearing every time, affordability is about everything.
The biggest thing.
And look, when people can't, you look at the percentage of their income that's going to rent.
Right.
You look that food prices aren't coming down fast enough, that certainly rents aren't coming down. it's concerning, even though this outlook looks really good for next year, which includes what are expected to be very large tax refunds and Fed rate cuts.
Right.
And that, you know, we're not going to get a cut in this meeting. January is going to be a wash. Some firms aren't predicting any cuts this year because inflation is still higher than they would like. But if you do get a cut or two, and refunds remember the SALT cap got quadrupled.
Yep.
That should give some hope. But I guess for people in that lower echelon who are not going to get tax refunds because they don't necessarily pay a lot of tax, that's concerning, right?
It is, for sure. And one thing you and I were just talking about was how different it can be state by state.
Yeah.
Every state's rules are different. You ever look at the employment numbers where it could be very flat in one state, it could be a lot of job growth in one state, and you could be losing jobs in another state. So looking at it state by state is really fascinating. The inflation numbers also, and this is going to be interesting when the new Fed chairman, whoever that ends up being, could be announced this week, right?
We've been hearing that.
I know.
Supposed to be before the holidays, supposed to be before the end of the year.
But if you look at these, what's it called? Truflation. Truflation is an independent company that looks at 10 million data points that calculate what the true inflation numbers are. So the PCE right now is 2.8%, which we said may be overstated. Truflation with their data points shows it at 1.36%. That's a huge gap between the two. So what's right? And if the new Fed chairman comes in and they look at different modeling to figure out what these numbers actually are from the employment perspective and the inflation numbers, maybe the consumer sentiment ends up changing a little bit, right? Where you could see, hey, if inflation numbers are a little bit down, that's the soft data and the hard data. So I feel like prices are up, but the actual data is showing me that prices have actually come down quite significantly. So it's going to be interesting to see towards the second half of this year if we see different numbers there.
Well, that's the hard part, right, Shar? Because I could be Fed chairman. We've already seen dissension like we haven't seen in a while.
Yep.
So they're very split about how they want to do things. You know, that plays a part in this, right? Because even if the administration picks someone and goes, oh, yeah, I'm going to deliver rate cuts, can they actually do that? It's not a dictator position.
Right.
And remember, as we mentioned, Jerome Powell can still stay on the Fed board if he wants. I don't know why he would want that. Maybe he does. I don't know.
I bet he makes a lot more money if he goes.
You're a lawyer like him. How do lawyers think?
Still salty about the lawyers and the economic guys.
Again, when you make me the head of the Bar Association, then it'll be even. Okay.
Yes,
Thanks,
exactly.
Ray. I appreciate that.
He's got one vote.
So I would say you're right. It's not a dictatorship, and it shouldn't result in a direct impact on lowering the rates. But if you would ask all these people in this survey that you just said and ask them, hey, if the administration handpicks the person they want to be the head of the chief of the Fed, do you think they're going to drop rates just like the administration wants? And I would say as a layperson, for sure.
Yeah.
Right? So,
But the hard part is, how does that directly impact them? What we've seen is when we've had rate cuts, credit card rates have not gone down noticeably. We know there's no correlation to mortgage rates. It's not going to make the rent cheaper. And look, wages are still growing faster than prices, you know, at least on a macro level. Everything could be different, certain jobs getting bigger raises than others.
One thing I actually want to go back to, you said the fourth quarter GDP was like a blockbuster.
No, it's expected to be 5.4%.
Expected to be.
But
one thing we've talked about in the past was the buy now, pay later services, the amount of credit card debt that is out there. And during holiday time, a lot of people put money on cards.
And it was a strong holiday sales season.
Correct.
Too.
But the buy now, pay later programs that are out there, the data is not favorable in any way, where people are defaulting on a lot of that debt, and the rates that they need to pay on that debt is exorbitant.
I'm always shocked when I'm on Amazon. I could be buying something for $20. It's like, you know, pay $5 a month.
I
and
know.
it's like,
I get that notice on my credit card bills also. It says that this payment that you made, you know, this purchase that you made is qualified for, you know, payments over the next 12 months.
The default rates now on second, third, and fourth payments have gone up pretty significantly, and that's a concerning number that a lot of economists and, you know, a lot of people are looking at, because people are spending a lot of money, but they're spending money that they can't afford.
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunately something that has always gone on. But at this
is a mechanism that makes it very easy for them.
In debt, student loan payments that have to start again. You wonder, and as we're finally looks like getting past the pandemic relief and incentives and everything like that, it's going to be a little different for people, and I think it's concerning.
Yeah, it's like when you peek under the hood to see exactly what's happening, you might not get as clear a picture. It might not be as favorable. That's why you're seeing like this like bipolar economy where multiple things are happening at the same time. It makes me think of the Jamaican bobsled team, right? It's like here's this team that's crushing it and they're winning all of their races, and then you realize like they're dealing with this like rinky-dink bobsled, and then ends up falling apart. One of my favorite movies, by the way.
Cool Runnings, right? Yeah.
Cool Runnings,
I haven't
exactly.
seen that in a long time. Great reference. Great. Ray loved it.
It's a John Candy.
John Candy, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great documentary on him I saw recently.
Oh, interesting.
Very lovable guy. Everybody loved him.
So when you ask the average guy about their confidence level, and then you look at all of these,
Are we not average guys?
you are not average. You are
That's correct.
One of one.
That's the correct answer.
above average. There you, I couldn't say it.
Why couldn't you say it?
I don't like to lie to the listeners.
Oh, okay.
You're so handsome, by the way. It was not so hard.
You're just jealous because I have like 3 more hairs than you do. All right, so just watch it.
Well, yeah, when the average person, looks at all these factors and, like the facts don't jive together, right? You have things on this side that say everything's good, things on that side, everything's bad, and then everybody's fighting with each other. Of course, nobody knows what's going on.
And then they're hearing words like K-shaped economy and
then at the same time, we're going to have the biggest transfer of wealth that we've ever seen. So you have a lot of, boomers that are transferring their money over to the next generation, and they're able to afford homes and
a lot
buy
of the
stocks,
transfers in real estate.
Of course. So it's it's an interesting dichotomy between what's actually happening.
Right.
All right. So before we move on to our next topic, let's take another round of breaks for some very important messages from some very important sponsors.
Hi, I'm Evan Greenberg with Langdon Title. I specialize in title insurance across New York, helping real estate attorneys, agents, and brokers close with confidence. I solve problems fast and keep your deals moving. Contact me anytime.
Looking to stage a property but on a tight budget and timeline? Stage with Stage and Fold. Stylish, lightweight, foldable, 3D printed cardboard furniture that looks real. Quick delivery and easy assembly. Staging starts at just $199 a month per room, and setup takes less than 30 minutes. Contact us today to stage smarter, sell faster, save thousands with Stage and Fold.
And we're back. All right, so in all this hoopla going on, all this concern, panic, gold tops 5,000 an ounce for the first time. What they call a debasement trade. Now, what does that mean? Well, investors not so keen on holding everything in dollars and treasuries. They want, something that can stand the test of time, something that our currency used to be based off of, and that's gold.
Inflation protected. Right? So talk about gold is that, real estate is that. So you have very smart investors who are worried about inflation or can be, where they'll invest a lot in gold. And real estate's also one of those inflation protected assets.
And now there's this whole thing about Sell America that we keep hearing. Dollar is down a little over 2% this year, down 9% last year, 4-year low, depending on how you look at it. And I think part of the problem with this fascination with gold is the Wall Street Journal had a good article on this called "The World Economy is Hooked on Government Debt." So it's not just us. We're as bad as everybody else out there. Global public debt is projected to exceed 100% of global GDP by 2029. Now, for a lot of countries, it already exceeds that. This is one of them. So maybe this shouldn't be such a shock, Shar, but when are these countries going to learn to live in their means? Do they, or I guess...
There's an exception there, though. Yeah. Argentina, with their new, I think they call it a president, Javier Milei. He's brought their debt down quite considerably in a 2-year period, and he's paid back their debt, which is like very rare. So now countries are looking to invest. Like their bond rating has increased in a big way. So they're like the exception, but you're right. I mean, even we just saw it recently with Japan, and with them raising rates and how it's a global economy. That impacted us. What's happening in Japan? We saw interest rates go up on that day. So yes, I mean it's easy to print money when you're the government, and that
back
has a
to the period after
effect.
World War I. Germany, just people bringing wheelbarrows full of money to buy bread and stuff like that. You can't, and this has been done in South American countries where they, literally just let's just print our money way out of a recession, and then we have inflation.
100%.
Kind of like when we kind of had a similar experience.
Is that when this started, World War I, where people started living a little bit beyond their means, these countries?
Well, I think it was a way to get out after getting decimated in a war. You need to rebuild. You need to get your economy going. Hey, let's print money.
It was supposed to be temporary. It was always supposed to be short term, but it's not.
Now, what's worse?
When you get it becomes like a drug. When you get addicted to the spending, and then your constituents are saying, "Yeah, we need more," you do it.
But you also dig yourself out of a hole that you can't get out of.
Well, also it's hard to get that money, as we've found now. It's hard to get that money out of the economy once you've injected it in there. You see, for us, we've been fighting this fight for 3 years now to try to get more than 3 years, try to get inflation down. With success, but now we're stuck in that red zone of the inflation field that we can't seem to, like the Jets, get a touchdown. Right. Well, if we had Sam Darnold, maybe we'd get a touchdown.
When the administration was talking about all this excess income from the T word, right, tariffs, they were supposed to take that and pay down our debt.
And anyway, then they told us to give it
around to give it back, right. But then that hasn't happened either. So I guess my question is, what's more important from a practical sense, how much debt you have or what your ability to pay back?
Well, Scott is the expert on this, but clearly it's your debt to GDP. It's like debt to income, right? And a country like the United States, where it's not a very good ratio, people will look and say, well, the economy there is doing pretty well. It's not as risky a bet as some of these other countries. But at the end of the day, that's supposed to determine your bond ratings and what rates you have to charge on your debt.
And then explain how that impacts people.
Well, the number one, I think, we're all talking about housing and housing affordability, is it's the 10-year Treasury market. If investors sour on that market and those rates have to go up, because as the price goes down, the rate goes up, that's going to hurt the mortgage market.
So just to be clear, that means interest rates go up.
Right, exactly.
So think about it during COVID when we injected, like I forgot exactly what the number was, but almost $1 trillion into the economy that, went to all Americans, and people just spent it. And then ultimately that devalues our money. So, if I have $1,000, I used to be able to buy a certain amount of goods and services. Now I no longer can. Now the $1,000 is no longer going as far as it once did. And we're talking about South American countries back in the day where they would have, some even still now, have inflation rates that are 50, 60, 100%, where it's wild. Iran right now, if you see what's happening there, inflation rates are through the roof. Iran, excuse me.
And you can't just say, okay, we're done with this phase. Let's go. Give us the money back now. You had fun with it.
Yeah, and that's it. It becomes like this drug that people get addicted to, and governments want to come in and save the day and say that we can spend it, we'll take care of it, but it has real-world impacts.
Yeah.
And when you're running for office, if your platform is, I'm going to pay down the national debt, it's not something people
you might get my vote,
gravitate towards. It's the same thing with income tax. We talk about New York City has mortgage tax 1.925% over $500,000. If you go to Nassau County, it's 0.8%. And people always ask why the difference in this. It's because in order to balance the budget, the city needs to raise money, right? And you either raise money by charging more on their taxes, and if you do that, you're either not getting elected or you're not getting reelected. So what they do is they have to raise money in other ways. So in order to record a mortgage, they charge you money. In order to get transfer taxes on your sale, that goes up. So it's another way to raise money without looking like the bad guy. So I think it's the same thing with this as well.
Yeah, and most people don't get it. And they can't. Most people have look. I wish we had 300 million people listening to this podcast. You know, we have a lot of listeners, but we don't have that many. Yeah. Most people don't have the time to digest all this information, know exactly what's happening. When governments are saying we're going to bring prices down, we're going to do this, we're going to spend that.
Well, they would if they just watch this at double speed. It'll be like 20 minutes, and then we'll sound funny too. Although when I speed my voice up, it sounds kind of normal because I have a lower voice. You might sound a little
maybe
Mickey Mouse-ish, with the high voice. I don't know how Shar is going to sound. I don't know if I want to know that, but all right. So let's pivot again to the housing market. There's a bit of a scary number that came out. Home buyers are backing out of deals at the fastest pace in nearly a decade. So Redfin is a national real estate firm, said that more than 40,000 signed home purchase agreements were canceled in December, representing 16% of all homes that went into contract, according to Redfin. They've been tracking this since 2017. This is the highest percentage they've ever found. The quote from their head of economic research was, high housing costs and rising inventory have made home buyers more selective. It's funny.
Sorry,
usually,
say that last part again.
High housing costs and rising inventory have made home buyers more selective. Now, rising inventory usually wouldn't mean high housing costs, but I guess when you have such a deficit of homes, even if it goes up. Now, I don't know if that's true, but another number they have in their report was there are roughly 47% more home sellers than buyers in the market. That sounds way too high to me.
That doesn't fit the headline.
Everything is local, so let's.
I was going to talk about that also, but before we even get to that, the reason I asked you to repeat that is because the headline was people backing out of contracts at a higher rate than they were, and then the reasons they're giving for that is because of higher costs
and more inventory.
So those are reasons why you don't go into contract. That's not a reason why you go into contract and then cancel it. The cost
this
of
is
the
why
home
he's
is already
a deal maker, not a deal breaker. This is he's earning a nickname now.
For the listeners in New York, you may not understand why people cancel contracts at a higher clip, because in New York we do all of our due diligence before you sign the contract. Once you sign the contract, it's hard. It's a hard contract, and typically, without one or two exceptions, if you cancel the contract as a buyer, you lose your 10% deposit. Outside of New York, you sign the contract, put a soft deposit, and then you have a due diligence period or attorney review period where you can cancel it, inspections, things like that. So in those states, yes, you can find a percentage of people who sign and then back out. But the reasons that they back out have nothing to do with what you just read. So let's email the writer of this article at Redfin.
Okay.
By the way, in that same article, what backs up what you're saying is the numbers in New York are very low. Yeah. So people do not back out of contracts. Obviously, it can happen, but it happens at a much lower rate in New York.
Well, some of that could be that inventory is still so low in New York that they're afraid that they're not going to find something else, particularly in Nassau, Westchester, and other parts.
But I think with this too, obviously every market is its own market and how it acts. But on a whole, on the aggregate, it's more of a buyer's market. So as a buyer, you have more options to negotiate credits on your behalf, a price reduction, the closing date. So working with a qualified agent in some of those markets will benefit you a lot more, where fewer contracts will fall out. But if inspections are failing or something like that after the contract signed, it makes sense that they would back out.
Yes. So then we got some data that seems almost contradictory. It was just pending home sales. That's a measure of contract signings, not closings. So down 9% month over month in December. The quote there from the chief economist at NAR was, consumers prefer seeing abundant inventory, before making the major decision of purchasing a home. In a perfect world, of course, right?
I prefer it.
There'd be no fear of missing out on anything in that case. So the decline in pending home sales could be a result of dampened consumer enthusiasm about buying a home when there are so few options. So one side seems to be saying there's too many options, this side saying there's not enough. But maybe the one synergy part is pending home sales are down, maybe not because fewer people are signing, but because contracts are being broken.
Mm-hmm.
If what Redfin says is accurate, then that may be the reason for a large drop. I don't know. But we like to look at pending home sales because it's more of a real-time indicator, certainly than closings. So I don't know. Now, you mentioned that it's very rare to see contracts get canceled in this environment. You want to give us some examples of when it happens and why, or is it just so rare that there's no patterns to it?
So,
because I think in some of these parts of the country, like you said, if I'm in it where it's not a real penalty to me to cancel and my deposit may not be that much, then I'll walk away. But here, you're not going to walk away from a 10% deposit.
Right. So even some places as close as New Jersey to New York, they put a deposit down, then you do an inspection afterwards. Right, and then you have the right.
And what's that deposit roughly?
I don't know how New Jersey works, but I don't think it's a full 10%. But either whatever it is, it's refundable pending your inspection and attorney review period. So if I do an inspection and I notice that the roof is collapsing, then of course that makes sense. You want to back out of the deal. But if you're in contract for a week and you do the inspection and you see an outlet needs to be tightened or the faucet is leaking and it's something small, technically that gives you the right to back out of the deal if the seller's not willing to repair it. So in those situations, maybe you can have buyer's remorse. But in New York City, the 5 boroughs where you're mostly dealing with condos and co-ops, I'm making up a number, 95% of the time, contracts are being canceled because A, the mortgage doesn't get approved, or B, the co-op doesn't approve the application. Other than that, for the most part, and you can ask your brokers listening, once a contract is signed, in the back of their mind, they're like, I'm getting this commission, it's banked. But once you go into Nassau County, where it's a little bit more of a seller's market,
where the beautiful people live.
Exactly. I don't think those buyers are backing out of deals.
No, because you're not going to find something else.
You're just happy you found a place, and if you're only paying 10% above market value, you're happy.
I have a niece, just bought a house, waive the inspection. Because
I would never.
I know, we talked about this.
I would never do that.
They promise to get it inspected, once they move in, at least they'll know what they're facing. But that's the level of panic and the fear of missing out.
It's true, though.
Is that you're willing to waive something that is so important that, now there's been changes to property condition disclosure statements here in New York. Used to be you could just give a $500 credit and wipe your hands of the whole thing and say, but you can't do that now.
You can't do that. There is a form that you have to fill out as a seller. But what we've done is put into the contracts as a seller saying the buyer has not relied on anything I've said on this, and you waive your right to sue me, and you have to do your own inspection. You're taking it as is. So there was a lot of hoopla once that came about, and brokers there was a little frenzy of what to do, but we haven't really seen any change in the way things go. Right. When you're a buyer, you do an inspection, you find out what you're getting yourself into, and then you sign the contract. I would say if a buyer of mine was going to waive an inspection, I would have them sign a waiver that says my attorney told me not to do this, and I'm doing it anyway, just to cover myself.
Also, let's think about these prospective buyers. If they back out, what do they need to do? They need to rent. So they're renting somewhere else. So what's that opportunity cost there? Right. The home that they're looking to buy, if rates are coming down and more people enter the market and there's not a lot of inventory right now, those prices are going to go up also. But also think about it in terms of what they're doing with their money. If they're not putting into real estate, maybe they are focused on the stock market and they invest that money there. And they'll say, hey, if homes are only appreciating at 3 to 4%, I can put my money in the stock market and I can make 20%. But that's not the way to look at it. Because if you think about it in very simple terms, buy a home for $100,000 just to make it very easy, and I put 10% down, right? So in that example, I'm putting down $10,000. If that home appreciates by 3%, right, that's
a $3,000 profit on that home on a $10,000 investment, my $10,000 down payment. I just made 30% on my money, on my down payment, right? That's the way that perspective, especially in this case, is probably a lot of first-time home buyers. That's the way they need to start looking at it. I just made 30% on my money.
I'm investing with you.
Yeah, see, between that and the hair, here, take all my money.
Yeah. But
All
when
right.
when you think like creative lending and like, thinking outside the box, like nobody thinks like that.
Yeah.
And when you put into simple terms to somebody, they realize what the value is of what
Yeah,
they're
an
doing.
attorney understood it. That's
But just to put a caveat on what I was saying, because I want to make sure people understood. When I was talking about the inspections, always if you're buying a house, either a townhouse or a single 2-family house out in the suburbs, if you're buying a co-op and condo, inspections are much less common, and I wouldn't require a buyer to do that. And we can talk about why that is another time.
So, all right, let's talk about mortgage rates. Still around a 3-year low. That's good. There's some consistency and predictability that could change. There's a lot of things going on. There's still the issue with the tariffs and what's going to happen with that.
I have a woman who's texts me every single week, every Wednesday, between 11 and 2 o'clock since November.
Well, hopefully she's not doing it now because we're filming this on a
I probably have a
Wednesday at
text
11
message
o'clock.
from her. And we're talking about rates. When I look back at our conversations from November until now, rates are within a 0.125% range. Like they've really been, in a very tight range there.
For how long?
Since November.
Okay.
So I think, things have been very, very flat. We do get a ton of questions about what we think the outlook is. Curious to get your thoughts on that too. From my end of it, I don't see a lot of movement in the first half of this year, at least, just based on what I'm seeing. Maybe rates go down 0.1%. Also, it's important for people to understand rates do not go down in a straight line, right? So as I mentioned earlier, earlier in the week, rates started to go up a little bit. But from a bird's eye view, rates have been very flat to trending downward. This marry the home and date the rate, it's a strategy. It's not a cute saying. So I think getting in
A lot
early,
of people feel burned by that too. I mean, maybe not so much now, but we're feeling burned because nobody guaranteed anything, but they were told, buy, you'll be able to refinance soon. Don't worry about it. And that turned out not to be the case because rates didn't necessarily get low enough for those people. So
there are more people now over 6%
than under 3. Yeah, no, that's a really important thing to keep quoting because people have this misconception. And the thing about rates is, you touch on this a bit, for them to go down, that means the economy has to not do as well, right? And nobody wants to see a recession. So when you look and you see that the forecasts for fourth quarter GDP are so high, and then the talk about all these tax refunds that people are going to have, which is going to increase consumer spending and lead to high GDP numbers. And there was an interesting article that came out too, like everybody's writing off the economic growth in the third and fourth quarter. Oh, that's AI investment. And then somebody actually looked at the data and found out, no, that's not what it is. It's consumer spending. Remember, it's 70% of GDP. And when things are going well, it's because we're spending more. So I think that this is certainly a good time to be buying because you're getting a rate that's as low as it's been in 3 years, or close to as low as it's been in 3 years. You don't feel so rushed. You have a little more inventory. If you wait, let's go back to a couple of other times where we've seen this, where rates have just touched 6, look like they're going to 5, and then they go right back up near 7. So you can, as you always say, stop focusing on one number, the rate. Look at the total picture. Look at what your payment is. Look at what the upside and downside is.
Forget 3 years also. Look at the last 12 months. Yeah. Rates are down 1% in the last. Yeah. So all those people who told Shar, told myself, told agents that they don't want to buy last year because they thought rates were too high. Well, now rates are 1% lower than where they were a year ago, right? So that's roughly $65 a month for every $100,000 that someone's borrowing in savings. That's real money.
Yeah, and I think that you have to focus more on what you want or need in a home, what's going to make you happy, where you can live for, at least 5 to 10 years. And what it costs, it costs. Doesn't mean that I'm not sensitive to the fact that it's expensive. It is. But this idea that you're just going to wait, I'm going to wait to the right moment. I'm going to get the price. I'm going to get the rate right. I'm going to pick the exact right time. It's not going to happen.
And your rent is going to go up every year.
Right.
That's always going to happen.
And that's what's keeping, you talked about different ways to look at inflation. I mean, that's when we look at how we have this idea of owner's equivalent rent to measure housing costs, it's not giving us an accurate picture. And I think people have to laser focus on their needs, what they can afford, what's right for them, and not pay attention to all the other noise. Mm-hmm. Oh, the Fed's going to cut rates again. I'll wait till then. Well, guess what? When the Fed cuts rates, that doesn't mean 10-year treasuries those rates won't go up, which will take mortgage rates with them. One bad inflation report, anything like that could take it right up near 7 again. 100%. Because as the Nadler rule tells us, rates go up a hell of a lot quicker than they go down.
Yeah.
Go up like a rocket ship and they go down like a feather.
One of the things Beth said very well when we were doing the live podcast a couple weeks ago was that there's value in owning your home for your family, having a home base, having a place where you grow your family. And there's never a spot on the spreadsheet for that. So if you're only looking at numbers, you're really missing a lot of value that buying a home for your wife and your kids to have.
And my son, when we dropped him off at Buffalo, University of Buffalo, got all teary-eyed. And he said, I can't thank you enough for letting me grow up in one house.
Wow.
And that stability. And, in such a great neighborhood, he goes, I don't know if I've ever told you that. And of course, then my wife started crying, and it was it was a very nice moment.
And he was like, can I have more money?
Yeah, now he's like, it's freezing up here. It's freezing up here. But yeah, I think that we have to look at it like any major purchase. Just be informed. We talked about this a lot in the last podcast. If you understand what Scott's telling you and what Shar's telling you, don't worry about what I say, then Your real estate professionals can guide you, but you have to make that decision. And just like any other major decision in your life, the outcome isn't certain to anything. And you just have to say, do we think this is the right place for us? Is this the right move? Maybe it's not the right time. But don't be laser focused on what a rate is, what the Fed's going to do, what you think the economy is doing, what you think is going to change or not change. Because if you're in that home 5, 10, I've been in my home 19 years, a lot is going to change.
Absolutely.
And, you just kind of roll with that. And at least you have that place, like you said, Shar, that your family can look at and say, we love this place. It's worth whatever, we paid for it and then some. And look, when I bought in 2006, people said prices are never going to be that high in Long Island again. Well, that's not true right now.
You pay a lot of money to go back to that number if you're
that's the thing. And it's like, I always say with my son about getting older, no matter what age you are, at some point in the future, you'll give anything to go back to that age. I'm about to have a birthday in less than a month. I will be 56. At some point, I'll wish I was 56 instead of wishing I wasn't 56. So there's your Greg Heym crossing the line lesson for today and appreciating. By the way, the oldest woman in New York City just died. I think it was 113 years old. Amazing.
We were going to give her a 30-year fixed mortgage, but she couldn't qualify for it.
Well, she was waiting for the 50-year mortgages to see when those were coming out. All right, well, that's the show for this week. I want to thank Scott and Shar. Ray finally claps. That's good. He's done spilling his water, so he can clap. He's out of water. And even Lena over there said something mean about me that I didn't hear. So,
what did you get them? You were talking about
why do I have to get them anything?
Life advice.
Look at this.
Yeah, they're on the show. It's the gift that keeps giving, Lena. Then I got to get you something, Ray something.
We get his blog. Live.
Hey, it's just a privilege of being around me. You have to pay. It's that line in, what is it, Gangs of New York.
Which one?
When Cutting tells Leonardo DiCaprio's character, like, next time, don't come in here empty-handed. You have to pay for my company. There you go, boys. Pay up. Well, have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Crossing the Line with Greg Heym and maybe these two guys.